Let's begin with the flavor of the season, and that is the elections, impending elections, the general elections.
And flavor of this season, flavor of the next, and the flavor all through summers.
Absolutely.
And that is when we have a new government or the return of the same government.
Or perhaps not a new government.
In any case, a new regime to kickstart.
Absolutely. A new regime will kickstart, and finance ministers assuring investors, the business community, that don't worry, the economic policies that have been put into place, the ecosystem, the climate that has been built by the present government is likely to continue for the next 4 years.
I think she did not mention the word likely at all, and she said,
Prime
Minister Modi is coming back and coming back with a good majority. I think FM out there sounding the poll bugle very, very clearly at an economic event, at a business event organized by India Global Forum, not mincing her words and telling investors, and literally telling investors, don't be jittery, there's no need to be jittery. I understand that there would be jitters. I understand there would be, you would be keeping your fingers crossed in a run-up to elections. But I urge you to not worry at all. And Prime Minister Modi is coming back, and not just is he coming back, he's coming back with a good majority. So these are words coming from Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman yesterday evening. And amid, of course, a lot of other macroeconomic indicators that are in any case emerging on a day-to-day basis. Now, just yesterday, Shweta, if you remember, we were talking about the S&P story in India, and S&P has revised India's growth upwards from 6% to 6.4% for...
In line with the government's estimates.
In line with RBI's estimates, at least of 6.5%, still about 100 basis points, short of that.
Yes.
So, actually, so, I mean, 6.4% versus 6.5%, you're pretty much in line with what the RBI is projecting. However, I think it is looking at cutting down its forecast. S&P is cutting down its forecast for FY25 from 6.5% to 6%, but is saying that 6.5% will happen in the subsequent financial year. So anyway, I think macroeconomic data coming in line with the macroeconomic fundamentals, coming in line with growth projections that India has, has sort of led the way when it comes to all major economies in the world. And FM there, not mincing her words, telling investors don't be jittery. Now, if you remember, there were headlines last week as well, where there were some estimates that the Sensex could go as high as 84 to 86,000 levels next year. Now, some analysts and some, analysts, not just Indian, but those especially abroad, have also come on record and said that if the Modi government were to come to power, you could see markets go up by about 50%.
Could scale all-time high.
And would scale all-time high. And in case that were to be reversed, then we will see some short-term selling and we will see pressure on markets downwards to about the tune of 30 to 50%. So that's the kind of commentary which is happening right now, given that we are in election season.
But then, to put context to that commentary, that would happen if there were any government that would have been in power for 10 years and were, to go away after 10 years, because that would mean a change in economic policy.
Right.
It is not a show of faith or confidence in the present government, is it?
Absolutely. So I think markets love continuity. Markets love not getting surprises, and right now I think markets are factoring in a good probability of the current regime to continue, right? But it's still very early days. I mean, not even, we haven't even gone beyond state elections yet. In fact, state election results are likely to come out only on the 3rd of December. And after that is when the official general election season is really going to kick off. So it's early days yet, but I think markets are expecting continuity. Some of the analysts that we are speaking to, both Indian as well as those internationally, are hoping on the return of the BJP-led, Modi-led BJP government to continue in power. And there are, of course, these sort of scares of a regime change, and that could impact markets immediately. But markets is just one side of the equation. I think the more sort of reasonable side of the equation is the general macroeconomy. And to the credit of the present regime, I think the Indian economy has done fairly well when compared to all its peers, and given the uncertain environment that we've been right from COVID, and I'm just talking about the last 5 years or so, right from the start of COVID about 3.5, 4 years ago. It started in China 4 years ago. India started feeling jitters only in March 2020. And then, of course, you had the Russia-Ukraine war. Post that, now there's a war in the Middle East as well. So overall, I think India has been fairly insulated. We've also seen the bank run in the US. We've seen banks topple, Silicon Valley Bank, etc. These are large stories which have largely kept India fairly insulated and not impacted as much. But at the same time, and this is something that FM has also warned, that whatever India can do domestically, internally, India is doing, and India is doing right. But there are these global macroeconomic issues which could have a bearing on India that India may not have control over. A black swan event, of course, nobody has control over. But even if you look at the discretionary spending taking a backseat in the US, India's exports, IT exports, as well as precious stones like diamonds, their exports to the US, to China, etc., are getting hit. India's export story is not holding up very well right now, given the macroeconomic uncertainty in the world. So I think given what we know, given all the certainties and the knowns, India's growth is poised to continue. But the unknowns and the uncertainties nobody really knows of. But FM, not mincing words, sounding the poll bugle, assuring investors that PM Modi is not just going to be back, he's going to be back with a good majority in 2024.
All right. Whether that's going to happen or not, we don't know. But Finance Minister there at least hoping that the jitters when it comes to investors are catered to, are put at bay by suggesting that the BJP will come back and perhaps there will be continuity in economic policy in the year to come.